On the 9th day, we invited the psychiatrist Bukhanovsky to talk to Chikatilo one-on-one. He spent the whole day with Chikatilo from early morning till very late at night.
The techniques used by psychiatrist Alexander Bukhanovsky were much different than the intense police interrogation.
I explained I wasn't his enemy, although not a defender either. In the medical language, there are no words like guilty and wrong. I wasn't his judge, but just a doctor.
Chikatilo opened up to Bukhanovsky. After several hours of conversation, he began to confess his crimes.
He probably, in some respects, wanted to be caught. I can't imagine somebody doing that for all those many years and not realizing that he was living in a hell of his own creation and wanting to be out of it.
He took even a kind of smarmy, perverse pride in demonstrating his various techniques, which he did in the KGB gymnasium, where little dummies were used to represent the victims.
Not only did Chikatilo admit to the 36 murders of which police were aware, he also described 17 more that they hadn't tied to him.
From then we began to collect evidence to prove his connection to the other murders.
Или брюки только спущены. Нет, как, ага, я вот не понял это. Он в это время одежда у него...
Chikatilo was more than willing to show how he disarmed people, how he tricked them, how he tied up the boys, how he inflicted the knife wounds, and how he even had sexual relations with his victims, either in the stage of near death or after death.
What we do know about the serial killer is when you start to talk with them, they hold everything together. Then they begin to disintegrate, and they begin to be able to share bits, pieces, odds and ends of murders.
On
the evening of December 7th, 1990, police drove Chikatilo to the local village of Shakhty. Again, one of the officers had a video camera. Walking between the gravestones of a small public cemetery, Chikatilo brought them to the site of a shallow, unmarked grave. Police dug until finally a child's sneaker emerged through the earth. Chikatilo watched casually, detached from the proceedings. But these horrors would shock the Soviet nation. What could have created this brutal killer? How could he have killed so many for so long?
What would cause a person to slip over that line and become a serial offender of any kind?
Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo had started life in a world of violence and human degradation. He was born in 1936 in the Ukrainian village of Yablachnoye. Joseph Stalin ruled the Soviet Union with an iron fist, and famines devastated the Ukrainian people.
There were serious food shortages in Ukraine, partly as a result of the devastation of the war, and partly as a result of the agricultural policies of the Stalin-era Soviet Union.
Under the banner of collectivism, Stalin forced peasant farmers to deliver their entire crops to the state for nationwide distribution. In the Ukraine itself, however, people were starving.
There was outbreaks of mass cannibalism in Russia that were caused simply by hunger.
Reports of cannibalism became so frequent, they developed into a kind of folklore.
A typical family cannibalism story. My aunt was arrested because she had somebody over for a meal, and there were fingertips floating in the soup.
As a young boy, Andrei's own mother told him such a grim tale about a horrific event that had supposedly happened just before he was born.
His mother used to tell him stories that his older brother was cannibalized because of the famine that was taking place.
She constantly used it as a warning, don't go out and play after it's dark. They'll grab you and eat you just like they did to your brother Stepan.
Her claim that his brother had been cannibalized was impossible to confirm, but psychiatrists speculate that Chikatilo himself might have been traumatized by another crime, an assault on his mother.
His sister was born in 1943 during a time when the Germans were occupying a large part of Ukraine where he lived. And his father was supposedly in the Red Army at the time. It's hard to imagine how the father could have gotten back to the family home to impregnate the mother. And they had a one-room home. So it's quite possible that he saw a German soldier rape his mother.
Also devastating in the eyes of 13-year-old Andrei was the fate of his father, taken prisoner by the Nazis. When Chikatilo's father finally returned home in 1949, he was suffering from tuberculosis. Rather than being rewarded for his war service, he was branded a traitor to the Soviet government.
You either died in battle or you triumphed, and there was no third way that was honorable. Stalin's paranoia was such that soldiers who were captured by the Germans and held captive were considered suspect.
Although the Communist Party made Andrei's father an outcast, Andrei's own devotion to the state was such that as a young teen, he became an active member of the Communist Youth League.
Chikatilo was very genuine in his belief, in his professed public belief in communism.
But with the onset of puberty, young Andrei realized that he was not like the other boys in the Youth League.
He never fit in very well, and he felt embarrassed and humiliated generally about his lack of sexual prowess.
His social circle consisted of much younger children, with whom he felt comfortable because they understood him, or elderly people who liked him because he was always a good boy.
As a teenager, Andrei was attracted to young girls, but he was humiliated when he found himself unable to perform sexually.
At that point, he was probably as attractive a man as he was ever going to be, and started having courtship with a girl in the village. And his impotence destroyed that relationship. It became a subject of gossip in the village.
It was yet another insult to Chikatilo's fragile self-image, and a discovery that would torment him all of his life. By 1955, Andrei Chikatilo was desperate to escape Ukraine and memories of a miserable youth. By his late teens, Andrei knew that he was sexually inadequate. To compensate, Chikatilo decided to better himself in other ways. He set his sights on the prestigious Moscow University, hoping to earn a law degree. But he failed the entrance exam. Disappointed, he entered a vocational school.
He wanted to believe in himself as a person who had studied hard, which he in fact had, and gotten a university degree. Not an insignificant accomplishment given his origins.
That was another layer of acceptability, if you will, another layer to cover up what really existed with Chikatilo.
In 1963, at the urging